Hi, my name is Felix Matos Rodríguez, and I am the Chancellor of the City University of New York. People who know me call me Felo, and this is my new conversation space on CUNY TV, Café con Felo. Bienvenidos a Café con Felo. It is with great pleasure that we welcome our esteemed guest and my dear friend Cass Conrad to the studio today. Ms. Conrad's dedication to advancing college access and success program at CUNY, first through her 16-year career at CUNY and now at the Carroll and Milton Petrie Foundation, has been nothing short of remarkable. Through her leadership, expertise in fostering opportunities, and commitment to community building, Ms. Conrad has played a pivotal role in promoting social and economic mobility for young New Yorkers, particularly for those in marginalized communities. Today, we'll have the privilege of delving into Ms. Conrad's personal journey and the transformative impact of her work in creating a brighter future for students across New York City. Welcome to the show, Cass. And our first question is always a coffee question. Are you a coffee drinker? And if so?
Absolutely.
So how do you take your coffee then?
Black.
Black?
Americano is my favorite.
Okay, and how many cups a day?
More than I like to count.
Great to have you here in the show, and thank you for your great partnership with CUNY. I think it'd be really good to give our viewers a sense of your personal journey. You went to school at the University of Chicago and then sort of found your way through New York and worked at CUNY and now with the foundation. Can you give us a little bit of that journey?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be able to sit down with you today. When I think about this journey, I actually think that it's all due to my family. I come from a family full of educators. Sure. My grandmother taught in a one-room schoolhouse. My mother was a school principal and a school teacher. My father taught for a short period of time. And as I was going to school, I tried very, very hard to not go into education. As you said, I went to school in Chicago. I grew up in the Midwest and went to school in Chicago. But I always knew that I was coming to the East Coast. From there, I went to Boston and then Philadelphia and then finally New York. Yeah. In some of those years, I was working in the business world. I worked as a consultant, and I worked in, when I came to New York, I worked for the New York Times Company. But as I was thinking about my various jobs, that I was always looking for something that had real meaning and real impact. And those kind of values led me to education. I really couldn't stay away from the family business, as it were. So, it's a real calling. I really appreciate the opportunity to do the work that I've been able to do over this period of time.
It's a great story. So I'll ask you a little bit about your work at CUNY in a second, but I also think it's important to talk a little bit about the foundation. I think that it'd be really important for the viewers to have a sense of the history of the foundation and, you know, right now, what are the priorities and some of the most impactful work that you're doing.
Sure. So the Carroll and Milton Petrie Foundation was founded by Milton Petrie, who has sort of the classic New York self-made man, self-made millionaire. He started his career in a clothing store with one store, which grew to hundreds of stores around the country and in malls across the country. And really, I think, had all of the ups and downs that you would think of as someone is growing a business like that. As his business grew, as he matured and really settled into his life in New York City, he himself, during his lifetime, was a real philanthropist, both with large organizations, but also individuals. I never met Milton, but he's famous for reading the paper every day, and when an individual ran into a crisis, he would reach out to them and set up trusts or help. You know, one example is a police officer who was shot in the line of duty. He reached out to his family and set up a trust for his children to make sure that they could go to college. And so when he died, he set up the foundation, and we've been operating as a foundation for about 25 years now.
So that's a young foundation by New York City standards, which you have a large role in sort of shaping what the agenda. Did he set some guidelines in terms of the kinds of things that the foundation could invest, or is something that you and the board sort of determine?
Very interestingly, he intentionally did not set a specific focus for the foundation. he named the original board members for the foundation and really wanted, and they were all people he knew very well, and wanted them to be able to select issues and causes that they thought would both kind of continue his tradition, but also make an impact.
It's wonderful that they have that flexibility. Let me go back now to your CUNY years, 16 years.
Yes.
But you had a really fascinating portfolio which had to do with all the work that the City University does with the New York City public schools, which is quite significant, right?
Yes.
And the success of those students moving after they got to CUNY. So it's labeled the K-16 portfolio. And I think it has tremendous, sort of importance and programs there. I wanted to ask you, as you look at those 16 years, what are the things that you're most proud of in terms of legacy of the work done there?
Sure. So when I started at CUNY, I came in to lead one very specific project. I came in to help start a network of early college high schools. This was very early in Mayor Bloomberg's term, many years ago now. But at that time, the New York City public schools had been struggling for many, many years. And Mayor Bloomberg made the public schools, so improving public schools and graduation rates, one of his primary goals at that point in time.
Was there also funding, I think, from the Gates Foundation?
Yes.
For that? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So as part of his major initiative and then part of CUNY's contribution to that, hundreds of small high schools were developed across the city. And CUNY, after some internal deliberation, decided to be a partner to the city in doing that. And launched a network of what is now roughly 20 early college high schools, which give students from every corner of the city an opportunity to both be in high school and in college at the same time. And really the foundation of those schools is the belief that everyone can be successful in college, that it's not only for the high performers or students from certain families or neighborhoods, but really it's open to everyone, and with the right kind of structure and support, everyone can be successful. And so it's wonderful that those schools exist now, and we've seen thousands and thousands of students graduate with college credit. Some come to CUNY, some go elsewhere, some graduate from high school with a college degree in hand, which is really exciting. We worked together on launching a couple of those schools.
We had, when I was president at Ostos, we had the Ostos Lincoln Academy, and then the second wave of P-Tech.
Yes.
One that was specialized on healthcare, Hero High School.
Hero High School, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. But that ethos that New York City public schools and CUNY serve the same population, that the two institutions can work together to make sure that students see a bright future for themselves, is something that I think carries on today. And I was really happy and proud to be able to contribute to over time. I think connected to the early college schools, we now have about 20,000 students a year who also are earning college credit in whatever type of high school. And I think that's really important. I think it's important for students to know that those kinds of opportunities are open to them wherever they're from.
Well, and the success rate of those students, completing high school, coming to college. When they come to college, they stay in college and they graduate faster. So
absolutely,
tons of great data showing that investment really, really, really works. And I was fortunate at Ostos, the first group of students from the Ostos Lincoln Academy that completed their associates. I gave them their diploma.
That's right.
And it was the funniest ceremony because I think there was a group of like 20 of them who did that. And because we end the semester earlier, they actually graduated from college before graduating from high school. And it was great to have those students and their energy as part of the larger commencement at Ostos. And I think there's so much we can do in New York State around early college and those high schools in terms of systematizing that and providing it sustained funding so it can even grow larger. So thank you for that wonderful seed that you planted. And I want to also mention, people might not be aware that there's intense collaboration between the largest school system K-12 in the country, the one in New York, and the largest urban university in the country, CUNY. And a lot of the infrastructure data agreement, all the things that people don't know that allow two large bureaucracies to do wonderful things. A lot of that groundwork was done under your leadership, and we're benefiting from that now. So I want to thank you publicly for that, and I know that you are very proud, and it's some of the most exciting work that we do at CUNY.
Well, I want to thank you, actually. One of the things that we just began to think about towards the end of my time at CUNY were an opportunity to send letters to students welcoming them into the university, and you were able to do that this year along with Chancellor Banks, and I thought that was amazing.
It was a great day. It was a great day.
Yeah, congratulations.
And, hopefully more to come, and also thank you for helping us now that we're navigating all the challenges with FAFSA. The foundation's been very supportive in giving us funding so that we can make sure that students that were turned off by the early mistakes and when the system was being set up, that they complete FAFSA and they can get their package and go to school. So thanks to the foundation for always being a great partner, and there'll be more news on that. And it's really important because we know that the students that we serve at CUNY are the ones that need that financial aid information to get their packaging and the aid that they need.
Absolutely. We've been a long proponent of changing the financial aid application process. Glad to see that the changes are coming. I wish the changes weren't so painful this year.
Yes.
But eventually it will be a better system, and really appreciate all the efforts that you all are making to make sure that as many students as possible can get the aid. It's really important.
Yep. So one of the exciting things I imagine from where you sit is that actually you get to work on a number of really exciting new projects every year, and then some things that the foundation has invested sort of historically. And I want to mention two areas there. And,
sure.
And one is emergency grants and emergency funding. I think folks don't realize how much of a game changer small amounts of money are in helping students really get to graduate. And the Petrie Foundation, clearly within the CUNY space, was a leader in funding many of those opportunities in our colleges, and now sort of funding many of our schools to do that work and making the system look for other opportunities to do that. And I also, something that you were particularly very helpful before, but more so during the pandemic, was supporting our food pantries.
Yes.
in the campuses, right? Can you talk a little about those programs?
Yes. Well, I mentioned earlier, our founder, Milton Petrie, really did want to reach out a helping hand to individuals. And in some ways, we think that the emergency grants kind of follow that legacy that he established for us. I think folks don't always recognize that college students, I don't know, there's the myth of the sort of starving college student, but it's not really a myth for many students. When they have to choose between buying the textbooks they need for class or the meal that they might need for themselves or their family, it's really an incredibly difficult choice. And so both the food pantries and the emergency grants can help students just navigate some of those day-to-day life issues. We see from the emergency grants, students, New York City is becoming more and more expensive every day. Yep. Students struggling with rent and with the cost of food and the cost of transportation. And it's really impressive, actually. CUNY students are resilient and resourceful, and sometimes, $300, $500 can make a real difference in sort of their ability to balance all of those demands. Yeah. And so the foundation has been a long-time contributor, and I think will continue to be. We really feel like that's a piece of our value system, to be able to make sure students.
Well, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And, many of our students do not have relatives that can bank them.
That's right.
What can happen in an emergency for students that come from, middle class and other families too.
That's right.
Sometimes also students culturally don't like the idea of debt.
Yes.
And then they will not get a loan or something equivalent of that to be able to meet that, and then have bad consequences as a result of that. So the emergency grants have been a great source. And the food pantry is something that folks don't realize. People think about the immediate need for food, but they are great sources of intelligence of what the students are going through.
Yes.
When those students come to the food pantry, we find out about issues they're facing academically, other support services that they might need. So the pantries are meeting a real need, but also providing us great intelligence to be able to support the students better. So it's a win-win all around.
Well, you've been a great leader around the pantries as well, and so appreciate the fact that you've been so upfront about the need for the pantries, removing the stigma from the pantries. Yep. Everybody needs a helping hand once in a while. So we believe that that's a really important service that the university provides. Yeah. We've been impressed, actually, some of the campuses also integrate the community into their pantry work as well. And it's
which is an added benefit.
Yeah.
It also takes away the stigma, going back to your point. Let me talk about, I have the advantage of knowing you, so I know some of the topics that are very dear to your heart. And I know you're very involved in something called the New York City Workforce Funders Group.
Yes.
Which New York is actually very blessed to have a group of program officers in many local foundations deeply committed to
Yes.
this idea of reforming workforce, to connecting New Yorkers to the kinds of jobs that are in demand. Can you talk a little bit about your role in that group, and then also some of the work that Petrie does in that space?
Sure, yes. So as you said, the New York City Workforce Funders Group is, there's about a dozen or so foundations and corporate funders that are participating in the group. We meet together regularly to both learn together about what are the issues in the workforce in New York City, and we also then think together about what we can do as a group, as a collective, to help the city better meet the needs of workers of all stripes. Petrie came to the work in particular, so Petrie really focuses on ensuring that low-income New Yorkers from low-income communities, have an opportunity to earn a college degree and enter the workforce. A college degree and a strong first job. We really believe those are the two markers of economic mobility, for which CUNY is so well known. And so that issue of kind of what is a strong first job, what are the skills needed to enter the workforce and be valued. Clearly a degree is part of it, but sometimes there's additional skills as well. And so Petrie has been part of this group both as a learning opportunity and an opportunity to contribute what we have seen and experienced through the grants that we make in the education world. We've been looking for ways to better partner with some of the agencies in the city. Okay. Mm-hmm. As they are growing their own capacity to think about talent pipelines, apprenticeships, and things like that. But I would say the other issue that is sort of on many folks' minds is how can the city better meet the needs of the newest New Yorkers, the influx of migrants that are coming to the city. Both meet their needs, but also recognize that they're a source of talent and workers for the city as well. And so how to both support the folks who are coming in, but then help them enter the workforce productively as well.
And take advantage of the assets that they do bring, right?
That's right.
I think the discourse, unfortunately, tends to accentuate the things that they need, and those are real and they're important. But they come with incredible assets, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it behooves us to be able to identify those matches and try to connect them with our existing pipeline in the workforce, and to their benefit and to the collective benefit of all New Yorkers. So I think that's important. And I also know that the foundation was very helpful in thinking about the workforce space post-pandemic and in recovery, right?
Yes.
It was very, very important.
Yes.
And that is a great lead to our next segment. And so when we come back, we will connect with students from the Bronx Recovery Corps at Lehman College, which is one of the beneficiaries of the Petrie Foundation support. But first, we'll take a quick break, so stay tuned and we'll return shortly. Welcome back. You are watching Café con Felo. My guest today is the Executive Director of the Petrie Foundation, Conrad. It is time now for the questions from our CUNY community. So we went to Lehman's Bronx Recovery Corps, an internship program that allows students to gain credit and pay work experience while helping local businesses. I believe the first question is from Karan.
Hi, my name is Karan Hinton, and I am a speech-language pathology major here at Lehman, and I would like to know what inspired the Petrie Foundation to support programs like the Bronx Recovery Corps?
Oh, that's a great question. As I mentioned earlier, Petrie cares a lot about helping students graduate from college and enter the workforce. And we know that paid work experience, while while folks are in school is incredibly helpful to students when they then look for jobs later. Bronx Recovery Corps is a great opportunity to do that. It gives students work experience in their neighborhood. It was launched right as we were coming out of COVID, and that's the recovery part of that, is to work with local businesses and nonprofit organizations in the Bronx to make sure that they had what they need to help the Bronx recover from such a terrible downturn during COVID. And from all that we've heard, the students have had fantastic experience doing the work there.
Well, that model CUNY has used, beginning with the Service Corps, right?
Yes.
Which is, there's a need, let's put CUNY students on paid internships to the task, and they always succeed, and they get an incredible ROI in terms of the networks, the experience, the exposure. And we've done it with the census, we've
Yes.
done it with the Puerto Rico after Maria. We send the students there. So that model of whatever the category is, CUNY blank Corps has really, really worked well. Thank you for the support. I think we have a second question from Moya.
I'm Dr. Bedward, the Assistant Director of the Office of Prestigious Awards. I'm so happy that the Petrie Foundation decided to fund the Bronx Recovery Corps here at Lehman College. I understand that at the end of granting cycles, funded programs are required to submit reports, including statistics and different kinds of results from the program. So I'm wondering if there's anything inspiring about a particular story or particular statistic that you've read about a program that you funded that you found just fascinating and amazing that inspires you and motivates you to keep going.
They want to know a good story to be able to include in the report so they get funded again.
Yeah,
It's a
very
good question, yes.
Well, I think in some ways the most inspiring parts of those reports usually are the stories about individual students. And we've heard about hundreds of students who have succeeded beyond what they originally thought they might be able to do, with jobs, with degrees, with continuing in their education, with moving into healthcare and IT and all kinds of wonderful places. So those are the things that sort of, I'm sure, keep you going as well. But I would say the other thing that we really have learned so much from, both in the reports from just engaging with our program, the programs that we support, in addition to the types of internships that are at Bronx Recovery Corps, many of the programs we support engage students as peer mentors,
Yes.
peer leaders, peer tutors. And those are so fascinating because the students inform us so much. They can tell us what's happening with their colleagues, what are the issues that we need to pay attention to, what's working, what's not, which is really incredibly insightful and helps us do our work better.
And also great data on the success of all those programs in getting the mentor stay in school, engage, continue, complete, do that, and then the mentee also.
Absolutely.
I think we have a third question from Abdul.
Hi, my name is Abdul Mohammed. I am a chemistry major, and my question is, are there any opportunities for students to engage with the Petrie Foundation?
Excellent question. One thing is that we always hire interns ourselves at the Petrie Foundation, so we'd love it if you want to apply. And then I think we are, more and more, we are out and about and meeting with both faculty and administrators at the colleges and the programs that we support, but also with students directly. And as I said earlier, we love to hear directly from students. They really have the most wisdom to tell us about the programs that we've been supporting.
I've had the pleasure of working with you for many, many years, so I know that's one of the values that you bring as an administrator, someone who's always thinking about the large picture and scale and systems and all the right questions that somebody who's either leading a program or, in this case, funding programs needs to do, but always that human side of you, which I guess now I know comes a little bit from that family background education.
Yes.
About always wanting to connect with the students and the story and use that to be able to, feed the practice and the policy. So thank you for that. And I think we have one final question, which comes from Preston.
Hello, I'm Preston Blake. I'm a mathematics major, and I just recently got my internship through the Bronx Recovery Course program. And I was wondering, what other initiatives is the Petrie Foundation funding to support people specifically in the Bronx?
Good question. There are a number of programs that we support in the Bronx. There's a program, Bronx Community College, that we're supporting that's called Get Psyched, which again employs students as mentors and advocates, present either in classrooms or in other sessions, clubs and things like that, about a broad range of mental health issues and share their own knowledge and again try to break down the stigma and encourage students to share what the resources are and then encourage students to use those resources if they feel a need. And again, that double benefit, the students in the Get Psyched program often are students who are thinking about mental health as a career path. And so many of them have gone on to bachelor's and master's degrees in issues like areas like social work or mental health counseling. Yeah. So it's a good program and maybe one that will eventually expand beyond the Bronx.
But that's the great thing about learning from one program and what works, what doesn't work, and then whether you go back to the drawing board or you explore and you know, for the viewers there who are thinking this is too Bronx centric, I just want to make sure that the foundation supports all our campuses.
Yes.
There's some other wonderful project with the Brooklyn schools in supporting their own pathways on
yes.
Careers around health, right? That's another initiative from the foundation that has Kingsborough, Brooklyn College, Medgar, and New York City Tech.
Yes, and that one starts in high school and helps students go all the way through to a degree.
I want to make sure that people didn't think that, you know, we're just doing Bronx. It was just what they decided to highlight among the many, many things that the foundation says. Any other call to action, Cass, anything that is burning in your mind in terms of projects from the foundation or things that you want to make sure that our viewers know?
I mentioned that we hire interns every year.
Thank you.
And I know that's one of the things that's near and dear to your heart. I think that the students are really always remarkable. And so I encourage everyone to think about how they could hire an intern, think about CUNY students as their future workers in whatever field. CUNY really does fuel the city. And so, so I just encourage folks to continue to think about the different ways in which to partner and work with the university. We have found it to be really important work.
Also, we're so affordable that supporting a student paying with an internship, it's almost like giving them a scholarship.
That's right.
In terms of the funding. So I put that extra encouragement there. But again, Cass, thank you so much for sharing your personal journey and for your longstanding commitment to enhancing college access and student support, for being such a great CUNY thought partner and after many years. So look forward to continue working with you. And I want to thank all of you for watching, and be sure to join us for Café con Felo every weekend, airing on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. here on CUNY TV. See you later. Saludos.